Hello everyone, welcome to Learn In by NSE. In today's lesson, we are going to look at string basics in Python. Let's get started. In the previous lesson, we started with data types in Python. Recall that one of the data types mentioned was the string data type, which we said basically just contains string denoted as str. In this lesson, we are going to talk about string in detail. What is a string? A string is a sequence of characters enclosed in quotation marks. That's basically it. Now you could decide to use the double quotation marks or the single quotation marks. Here are some examples. Hello world. Notice that we have it wrapped with quotation marks. I am a string. It's another example. Here we used single quotation marks. And we have another example. This is a multi-line string in Python. This time we use triple quotation marks. As we progress, we are going to see how to use single quotation marks, double quotation marks, and triple quotation marks. To do all of that, let's head over to VS Code and write some code. By now, you should already know how to create a Python file in VS Code. However, if you would like some assistance with that, refer to our setup lesson or our Python basics lesson. Any of these lessons will give you the needed guide. The links to these lessons are in the description. Right here, I am going to declare a string. I will call it intro, just like this. And I will set it to hello guys, welcome to Learn In by NSE. Now, just to mention, I realized that you may find the terms declare and assign strange, considering the context that they are being used here. Remember, we said that variable holds data. Now, when we talk about declaring a variable in programming, we mean giving a name to a placeholder where we can store data. It's just like labeling a container to hold something. So in this case, we have intro. This is us showing that we have chosen intro as a variable and we want to store something in it. At this point is when assignment happens. Assignment is the process of storing a value in a variable. To do that, we use the sign that you know as the equal to sign, just like this. But in this case, it is called the assignment operator. And the value that we want to store in this variable called intro is hello guys, welcome to Learn In by NSE. Now, this variable here is a string, and we know that because it is wrapped with quotation marks. So in this case, we declared a variable intro and we assigned a value to it. So when you hear me say, let's declare a variable or let's assign values to our variable, it shouldn't be strange anymore. So simply put, in programming, declaring a variable is like creating an empty box with a label indicating that we will use it to store some data of any data type. It could be a string, it could be an integer, it could be a boolean. We could have x equal to 5. So in this case, x here is still a variable that we've declared and it's been assigned this value of 5. 5 here is an integer obviously. So in programming, declaring a variable is like creating an empty box with a label indicating that we want to store some data of any data type in it. It could be string, it could be an integer, it could be a boolean, or whatever data type suits your needs at the time. While assignment happens when you put something inside that box, that something is data. Just like we have here, we have this variable intro declared and we have assigned hello guys, welcome to learn in by Inse. We also have another variable declared x here, and then we put 5 into x. That being said, now let's continue with more string examples. I'm going to take this off because we are not talking about numbers today. Let's just say my string and we can assign it hello world. Notice here that in the first example, we use double quotes, while in the second example, we use single quotes. Anyone that you choose to use is going to work just fine, but you have to be sure that you are consistent. If you start with double quotes, Python is going to expect a closing double quote too. If you open with a single quote, Python is going to expect a closing single quote. You should avoid starting with a single quote and ending with a double quote. You can see we already have this being flagged as an error. So if you try to run this code, you are going to see the error being written here on the terminal. It's a syntax error indicated here, and it says unterminated string literal. That means that Python cannot see the end to this string here. Let's replace it with single quotes. Let's save. Now notice that that red line is gone, and this shows that our syntax is correct. Now if we try to run the code, we do not have any error shown on the terminal. Now notice that we do not have anything printed to the terminal. That is because we have not asked Python to print anything to the terminal. We only have our variables written here, intro and my string. Now let's try and replace this quotation mark, this closing quotation mark on intro, with a single quotation mark. Let's save. Now you can see that we have this red line that indicates that your syntax is not correct. Alternatively, even without running the code, if you place your mouse on it, you are going to see the problem being written out here. And it's the same error we had when we tried to close the single quote on my string with double quotes. It's the exact same error that we have, and it says string literal is unterminated. So until Python sees a corresponding closing quote as was started with, you are going to have this syntax error. So now let's take it back. Let's remove the single quotes and replace it with double quotes. And now notice that we have a cleanly written code. There is no error flagged anywhere. That being said, I just want to go ahead and print these variables on the console. And remember, the print function is used to do that. So we are just going to go ahead and print intro on the terminal. So we have wrapped it with this print function, which is going to help us to print it to the terminal. We have saved. Now I am going to run this code by clicking on this run icon, and notice that I have hello guys, welcome to learn in by Inse printed here. If we wanted to print my string too, we could go ahead and use the print function as well. We have my string wrapped here too. Let's save and let's run the code just by clicking this run code icon, and notice that on the console we have hello world printed as well. You could have double quotes and you could have single quotes. As long as you are consistent, either of them will work just fine. Just to mention, we avoid repetitions in programming. Like you can see here, we have print and we have another print here. So instead of writing print here and print here, taking up more space and time, we could use one print function and put in our two variables here that we want to print. So now I'm just going to do away with this, and let's save and let's run the code. Notice that we have hello guys, welcome to Learn In by Inse printed here. We also have hello world printed. However, they are printed on the same line. To introduce that line break, I'm simply going to type this backslash and n. Let's save and let's run the code again. Now notice that we have them on separate lines. So we have been able to print intro and my string on two separate lines just by introducing this new line character. And that's all that I'm going to say about this character in this lesson. As we progress, we are going to learn in detail about this new line character and others of its kind. Yeah, so let's continue. String can also be made of multiple lines. Let's see how that works. I'm going to declare a string. Let me just call it multi underscore line, and I'm going to set it to, hey, I am a multi-line string in Python. Notice here that we already have errors showing, and that is because Python does not allow line breaks within a string. As long as you have opening and closing quotes, you are not allowed to introduce a line break. What I mean by that is if you hit the enter key of your keyboard to start a new line within your single or double quotes, you are going to have errors. This code. Let's have a string on multiple lines using double quotes. So I'm going to say, hey there, and I'm going to hit the enter key of my keyboard to introduce a new line, and I'm going to just say I am on multiple lines. And you can already see that this is not looking good. We have these errors showing, and if we try to run this code, we are going to see that we have a syntax error. To take care of this, we are simply going to make this quote 3 opening, and we are going to make it 3 closing, and notice that the error is gone. Now if we save and run this code, you are going to see that we do not have any errors on the terminal. So this is to say that when you have your string on multiple lines, ensure that you use triple quotes. It could be triple double quotes as we have here, or triple single quotes. I'm just going to copy this. Let's comment this out, and let's replace the quote here with single quotes, And let's come here and replace the closing quotes with single quotes as well. And let's save. Now notice that we do not have any error lines. So if you're using the triple single quotes, or if you're using the triple double quotes, it's going to work just fine. However, you have to be sure that you are consistent. If you start with opening triple single quotes, ensure that you close using the triple single quotes as well. If you're using triple double quotes, ensure that you open and close with triple double quotes. I hope that that is clear. Otherwise, if you have any questions or comments, please say them in the comment section. Now, let's look at one last string example. I'm just going to say age is equal to 18. Though we have a number here, notice that the number is wrapped with quotes. And just because this number is wrapped with quotes, it is being seen as a string, not an integer. Just to further prove that, remember our type function. Let's bring it back. Let's have age in there. Now let's wrap this whole type of age in print function so that we have something printed on the terminal for us to see. Let's save. Let's run the code. Now notice here that the type of data shown to us is string, not integer. However, if we have another variable, let's say x equals to 18, notice that this time 18 here is not wrapped with quotation marks, and that makes this 18 here an integer. I am going to clear the terminal just by typing clear and hitting enter, and I am going to run this code. This code is going to print the data type of 18 here in quotes and the data type of 18 here without quotes. I'm going to just click run here and it's going to run. So notice here that this first 18 with quotation marks is a string, while this second 18 without quotation marks is an integer. In essence, when you have your characters, whether it's a text or it's a number wrapped with quotes, there you have a string. I hope that is clear. If you're interested in getting this source code, I have provided the link to it in the description. Now let's talk about string operations. There are some operations that can be performed using string. Operation like concatenation. Yeah, so concatenation allows you to put two or more strings together using the addition operator. So let's see a clear example. Let's declare some string variables. Let's say first equals to hello, and let's say second equals to world, and let's have another variable. Let's call it result, and let's say first plus second. First here refers to hello, while second here refers to world. Concatenation, like I said, is putting two or more strings together using the addition operator. So first here is a string, second here is another string, and we are putting them together using this addition operator. That is concatenation. Now we want the output of this concatenation to be stored in result variable. So we are going to print results, just so we have something displayed to us on the terminal. Now let's save and let's run this code. Now notice that on the terminal here we have hello world. Howbeit, hello and world are joined together. Normally we would want it printed as hello world with space in between. But what we have here on the terminal doesn't include a space. To introduce a space between hello and world in this our example, we are going to come back to this concatenation line and we are going to include a space just by typing quotation marks and creating a space in between the quotation marks and typing another addition operator. So these quotation marks now are wrapping an empty space. Notice that we have a space here between the opening and closing quotes with nothing written. To attain this, all you have to do is type your opening and closing quote and then hit the space key of your keyboard and you are going to have a space created here. Now let's save and let's run the code, and now notice that we have hello space world. So that's basically it for concatenation. You can concatenate as many words as you would want to concatenate. Let's say that I introduce a third variable. I'm just going to call it third and I'm going to set it to beautiful people. Let's save. We can concatenate this first, second, and third variables. So let's come back to this line 30 that has our concatenation code, and let's simply introduce another addition operator, and definitely we need a space between the second and the third variable. So we are going to introduce our space just by typing quotation marks and then hitting the space key of the keyboard, and we are going to have another addition operator, and then finally we have the third variable written there. And let's save and let's run this code. Notice here now that we have hello world beautiful people. So that's just how to concatenate. We might decide to have print wrap hello and world. Now notice that it's the exact same thing, but the only difference is that we are not using variables in doing this. We are simply just using the strings as they are, hello and world. So our strings here are not stored in variables. I'm going to comment all of this out and let's save and let's print this code. Notice that we still have our result as hello world. So you can concatenate your strings stored in variables, or you can concatenate the strings as they are, just like we did here. Now this does not have a space because there is no space here, so we are just going to introduce a space, and let's save and let's run the code. So notice that we have hello world printed to us here. Let's see one last example of concatenation. This time I'm going to use numbers and I'm going to use single quotes so that you will see that whether you're using double quotes or you're using single quotes, concatenation still happens. Let's have another variable, say z, storing the concatenated value of x and y. Let's save. Let's print z. What do you think the result is going to be? Let's run this code and then we are going to all see for ourselves. Now notice that we have 45 printed here, and we all know that Normally 4 plus 5 is 9. But in this case, we have 45 printed here. And that is because, like I said earlier, when you have a number wrapped with quotation marks, that number becomes a string and it is going to behave like a string. Just like we saw while we used hello world. What concatenation in this case simply does is it is simply going to put x and y together, like place them side by side without actually performing any numeric operation on it. It's not going to add 4 and 5 to give you 9, to rather just place 4 and 5 side by side. That is why we have 45 here. Let's introduce another variable. Let's say n, and let's set n to 0. Let's save and let's concatenate n with x and y. Let's save and let's run the code. Now notice that we have 450 printed to us. And if we were to introduce spaces just like we did with hello world, it would be very possible to do that, and it would be treated just like it was treated when we had hello world. Now let's save and let's run this code. Now notice that we have 4 space 5 space 0. That's all the examples that we are going to show in this lesson about concatenation. If you have any concerns, if you have any questions or comments, please say them in the comment section. Now we are going to talk about string replication. String replication is basically multiplying a string with a number. Let's see how it's done. Let's have a string here and let's call it MSG, just like that. And let's say hello. Let's just say print message, which we all know is hello in this case, times 3. Let's save and let's run this code. If you look here in the terminal, you're going to see that we have hello printed 3 times. Hello 1, hello, and another hello. So if we had 10 here, let's save. This would print hello 10 times. Look at it printed here. If we had MSG here times 100, this is going to print this hello 100 times. If we had 1000, it would print it 1000 times. If we had even say 1 million, it would print it 1 million times. But come on, you really don't want to print hello 1 million times, because what's going to be the purpose? So that's it with replication. You are able to multiply a string with a number, and that's basically what replication is about. If you have any questions or comments or concerns, say them in the comment section and I will attend to each and every one of them. Now let's talk about accessing characters. While working with strings, it is possible to access individual characters of a string using indexing. What do I mean? Let's have a string declared. Let's use message, let's say MSG hello. Now let's save. So what I'm trying to say here is that you can access H differently, you can access E differently, you can access this first L differently, you can access this second L differently, and you can access O here differently. And we do that using indexing. We say indexing because this process involves us providing the index of the character that we are trying to access wrapped in square brackets. This is what I mean. You have your square brackets. and you put 0 inside, or maybe you put 1 inside, or maybe you put 6 inside. You can put 1 or 2 or 6 inside depending on the position of the character that you are trying to access. It is very important to note that indexing starts from 0, not 1. So that means that the first index of your string is always going to be 0. So you start from 0 and then you progress. Now let's start printing these characters one after the other, and we are going to see clearly what we mean. Let's print message msg square bracket. Let's put 0 in there and let's save. And if you check the terminal, you're going to see that you have letter H, which is the first character of this string, printed here. Now let's just repeat this for as many characters as we have here on hello. We have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's have this 3 more times, and then let's have 1 here, let's have 2 here, and let's have 3 here. Now let's save. If we run this code on the terminal, you're going to see that we have H printed for the index of 0, we have E printed for index of 1, and we have L printed for index of 2, and we have this second L printed for index of 3. Now we forgot to include 4, so let's quickly add 4 there, and let's save and let's run this code. Now notice that we have O printed for 4. To make this clearer, I'm just going to have this descriptive sentences just before we print out the characters at these various indexes. This might look confusing, but all I am doing here is including a string here. This string that says character at the index number. The index number in this case is 0. The index number in this case is 1. And just like that until we have 4. Then I am going to print the character at this named indexes 0, 1, 2 to 4 on the console. I hope that is clear. If it's not clear, please say it in the comment section and I will address it. Now let's run this code. Look in the terminal here and you're going to see that we have character at index 0 is H, character at index 1 is E, character at index 2 is L, this the first L, character at index 3 is the second L, and character at index 4 is O. While accessing characters, you may have a string that's more than one word. I'm just going to say, let's say message here, and let's set it to hello world, and let's save. Comment this out so it doesn't confuse us. We have this string here that has hello and has space and then has world. While accessing characters, space also counts. Space counts, yes. Let's just quickly see that if we want to print the character at, let's count together, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this space here is on index 5. Let's print that. Let's say print message square brackets and 5 in it. Let's run this code. Notice that we have nothing printed to us. That is because the 5th index here is this space. Now if we go ahead and print 6, let's run the code. Now notice that we have W returned to us here, and that's because considering this string, W here is at the 6th index. So it is very important to note that while working with strings and you're trying to access characters, that the space or spaces within those strings count. It is also possible to access index from the end of the string. And what we do in that case is use negative numbers. So let's just change this to -6 and let's save and let's run the code. We still have W returned to us. That is because from the back, if we are counting, you would see that this exclamation mark is -1. When you are counting backwards, you don't start with 0, you start with -1. So our exclamation here is -1, D here is -2, L is -3, R here is -4, O here is -5, and W here is -6. Now, just so that we see, I'm going to print message at -1 because I mentioned that while counting backwards, you do not start with 0, you start with -1. So that is why I want to print this -1 for us to see. When we run this code, you are going to see that we have W is on -6, and then we have exclamation mark here. Exclamation mark is on -1. It is very recommended that you store your values in variables. It's going to make your code easier to read, easier to navigate, and all that. But just for explanation's sake, I am going to use this string here, NSE here, and it's not stored in any variable. So I'm printing it directly like that. In this case, I am trying to find the character at this index of -1. So let's run this code. I'm sure you must have saved your code already. Let's run this code and then notice that on the terminal we have E returned to us, and E here is the last character of this string. So simply put, if you're trying to access the last character of a string, use index of -1 and you're going to easily have the last character of a string. So that's all that I am going to say concerning accessing characters of a string. The last concept that I want to talk about in today's lesson is something called slicing. Now, slicing is basically just extracting a substring from a string. There's a syntax for it. The syntax is just like this. You have your string and then you are going to provide the index where slicing should start from, and that's with this start, and you're going to provide the index where slicing should end, and you're going to provide the step. Now this step is how many characters would you want to be considered per time. We are going to see how that works with very clear, explicit examples. Now, I also want to say that while slicing, the start index that you provide is going to be considered, like it's going to be included in the substring that will later be formed. However, the character at the end index that you provide is usually not included. Say if you decide to start from 0 and end at 4, the output that you would have from that is going to only show characters at index 0, index 1, index 2, and index 3. 4 will not be included, even though 4 is the index provided as the end index. So you would sometimes hear stuff like start is inclusive, end is not inclusive. That's basically what they mean. That the start index is going to be included in the substring that is formed, but the end index is not going to be included. So let's see an example. let's use hello world again. Let's say we have message msg here, sorry, and we say hello world. Let's save. Now let's apply this syntax that we know here. So come here. In this case, our string is msg. So we're simply going to write msg, and we are going to open this square bracket, and in it we are going to specify a start index. So let's say 0 because we want it to start from 0. Let's have a colon just like we have here, and then let's specify the end index. Let's say 5 because we want the end index to be 5, and then let's specify a step. Let's make this step 1 here. Let's create a variable to store the output. Let's say new msg. Let's have the new substring that we are going to extract from this message string stored in new message. So let's come here and let's print new message, new msg. Let's save, and then let's run the code. Now notice that we have hello returned here to us. So hello here is the substring that has been created from this hello world string, and it is formed from this syntax that we wrote here. In it, we told Python, take this message string starting from the character at index 0. We already know by now that the character at index 0 is h here, and we said go up to the character at index 5. Do not include 5 because that is how slice works. Slice does not include the end index. I already explained that before now. So in this case, since the end index is 5, that means that slicing here will stop at 4. So let's see, let's count together again. We have h at 0, e at 1, the first L here at 2, second L at 3, and this O at 4. So that is exactly why we have hello printed here on the terminal. And of course, it followed it one character after the other because the step provided here is 1. So we are telling Python, consider these characters one after the other. Let's comment this out and let's have this exact same code that we just ran. Let's save. In this case now, let's change the step to 2 and let's save. And let's run this code and see what it comes to. So now that we run this code with this step 2 here, if you check the terminal, you're going to see that we have HLO, just like we did before. Start at 0, end at 5, taking 2 steps at every point. So what happens here behind the scenes is that it's going to consider h being the character at index 0, and then it is going to go 2 steps after h because we provided 2 as the step here. So we are going to have the character at index 0 considered, and then it's going to go 1-2 steps, and the next character to consider is going to be L here, and after L here is going to go another 2 steps, 1-2, and the next character to consider is O here. So that's why we have HLO returned to us. I hope that is clear. I also want to point out that we can decide to write a slice syntax specifying only the start and the end index, and we do not specify the step. So let's run this code. and see what it comes to. So when we run the code, notice that it's hello, just like we had when we set step to 1. That is because when slicing, the default step is 1. So whether or not you specify 1 here, Python is going to know that it should skip 1 step. I hope that that is clear. So we can also have slice written like this, where we have a colon and then we have one value provided. So this value now provided in this case is going to be considered as the end, while this colon simply says start at index 0. So if we run this code, we've already saved. If we run this code, you're going to see that we still have hello here, because considering our string here, if we start from 0 and end at 5, the substring created will be hello. This syntax here means that start from the beginning and end at 5. So we can also have double colons like this, and then we have a number provided here. This syntax is going to be considered like this first colon represents the start, the second colon represents the end, while this value provided here represents the step. Let me just change this. 5 might be too big for the example that we have, so let me replace it with 2. Not because 5 is wrong, but we have very few characters here. So if we are taking 5 steps per time, then it might just be a lot considering what I'm explaining. Okay, so now that we have this, let's run this code and then see what happens. In this case, because we have colon here, it assumes that we are starting from the first index, and we have another colon here, and this second colon represents the end index. So in this case, it is going to be taken that the end should be the last index, and we have provided 2 here as the step, showing that as we slice, we are going to consider every second character from the start. We consider the index at the beginning, edge here, and then we go 1, 2, and then we have L returned, and then we go 1, 2, and then we have O returned to us, and then we go 1, 2. Remember that this space counts, and then we have W returned to us, and then we go again 1, 2. We have R returned to us, and then we go 1, 2, and then we have D returned to us. That's what writing slice like this means. Okay, so let's look at one last example of slice. You could also write slice like this. When you have this, you're asking Python to create a substring for you based on this MSG string here, and you're specifying that Python should start from the character at the second index all the way to the end of the string. The character at the second index here is, let's try 0, 1, 2. So we have this L. So Python is going to cut from L to the end of the string, and it's going to return the new word to you, or it's going to return a new string to you, so to speak, formed from this string, and that string is this LLO world. I hope that that is clear. This is all that we are going to take. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, please say them in the comment section. And if you're interested in this source code, I have provided the link to it in the description. In the next lesson, I will still show you many more ways that you can work with a string. Remember to like and share this video. Remember to subscribe to learn in. Thank you for watching. See you next time.